So I'm really glad to be here. A big thank you to Europeana and all of you for joining us here. So like I said in earlier, while everybody was joining in, it's a festive day in India. So particularly excited to be spending this time with all of you celebrating. And so I decided to sort of propose this workshop about Instagram specifically and not Twitter or any other platform because personally, I have really loved the experience I've had with Instagram and seen that of all the platforms, Instagram was the quickest to grow and find a group of people and build a circle which who had never really known in the past. So I'm going to start my, I'm going to share my screen so we just sort of go into the story as we move from here, but from likes to love to building a community. So I decided to sort of call this, I decided to name the workshop such because every time I posted something on any of the other platforms, there were like buttons, love buttons, everything was great. But it's only on Instagram that I started finding a literal connect and finding friends. This is also because when I signed up on Instagram, a lot of my friends were, already like, are you on Instagram? Are you not on Instagram? And I would be like, it's my work thing, so I don't really want to follow all my friends, and no hard feelings there, but I already know what's happening in my friends' lives. And Instagram, I wanted to explore a new sort of friendship with everybody and sort of share my passion for art, for heritage, and for culture. So the thing about Instagram is that I don't know if you all use it for work or if you use it for your personal accounts, but this is something that I felt was a great tool to talk about something you're very passionate about and drive people towards supporting you or adding their views and sort of just adding value to your cause that you stand for. So today, what we are going to do is sort of explore how we can become part of someone's life on Instagram and be a very, sort of make other people also part of our life. So there's a very interesting quote by Mary Oliver who says, "Instructions for living a life: pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it." Now, I feel that this is instructions for living a life on Instagram, definitely. So this is also why I decided to use the poster. But primarily, Instagram is this. You see something, just capture it and share it. I've used Instagram to tell stories about how I work with, classroom full of children and sort of work on arts education. I've used Instagram to share museum objects, museum experiences, sometimes taking people on a virtual Instagram tour, and sometimes even attending other people's tours. And that's how I really made friends with museums. Um, Before that, for me, museums were institutions. They were not people. I didn't know any people working at museums. So, really, Instagram is how this whole engagement started. So, today, just a short overview of how we are going to proceed through this. We're going to talk about what our goal is and how Instagram can help us achieve our goal, how we can be found and discovered on Instagram, how we can start finding a conversation, falling in love and commitment. So, if you just notice the sequence, we're basically talking about building a relationship, right? So, how you discover someone, how you start your first conversations, how you fall in love, and whether that leads to a bigger thing at all. And I'm also going to share two features that are going to come up on Instagram. In India, one of the features is not released, but it might be in your country, so it will be great for you to check it out. And in the end, I'll give a little link to the social media handbook where the Instagram handbook will be updated, and you'll probably find it there tomorrow. Yeah. So without much delay, we should get started. And maybe we should take a little poll, Henning, just to understand where we are at with everybody and how we are going to manage our journey together today. This is just a short poll, guys, just two questions.
I hope you can see the poll on your screen, everyone. I see nodding heads. Okay, so then back to you, Medhavi.
Okay, we'll just wait in for the results.
We have currently 58 people in the room. So
Oh, great. This is easing me up a little. I was a little nervous that, sometimes your ideas can be so different from what everybody else is expecting. So this is great because there are a lot of institutional examples that we are going to talk about today, and the engagement part is what we are going to focus on as well. So, yeah, some more votes coming in.
yeah, I'm
Different
still giving
sliders.
it a couple of more seconds. 47 votes and counting.
Do I have to vote?
I don't think you can vote
Okay, no, I can't
as a
vote. No, I
co-host.
can just see it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and then I share the results with you as well.
Mhm.
So I hope you also see the results.
Wonderful. So I guess I hope we all have a good time today. But I guess if you're just somewhere not finding it as much fun, please just drop a line into the chat and I'll try to, sort of spruce it up a little more again. Yeah, should we move ahead?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Right. So, what are our goals for Instagram? So, I think it's great to just sign up on an account because everybody is doing it. And that's something that I realized in the initial period as well, that I didn't really have a goal in mind when I was sort of starting Instagram as an account. And somewhere along the way, I realized that, okay, this has to be done with a purpose. It can't just be about everything. So, it has to be specific. And what do I really want? Now, the Heritage Lab is a content platform and it works with lots of museums. And the idea is to take people to museums and take museums to people and basically just bridge that gap between people and museums. Now, if you're an institution, if you're handling an institutional account, for instance, or if you're using even a personal account, um, there can be different goals. Maybe you want to attract potential volunteers and visitors, or you just want to attract people to your podcast, or you want to just develop a stronger and more meaningful relationship with people and just sort of know from them as to what you could do to sort of serve them better as an institution. So for all of those things, I think Instagram helps in different kind of ways. If you see this little screenshot that I have, for anything, we begin, of course, with a strong bio, which usually has a call to action. So, no matter what your goal is, and if you're stating that out really clearly, that this is what I'm trying to do and I need your help, or join in, or come visit us, anything can be a call to action. You can give a little link over there. It can also be a sign up to our newsletter feature. I particularly feel that whether or not you're using this for a personal account or an institutional purpose, it's always best to take your community from Instagram to another place where you can keep them safe. This is because for any platform, you don't know tomorrow, TikTok might just be more popular in your country, in your region, and then people will slowly start to flock there. This happened with Facebook in our country. A lot of millennials who used to earlier swear by Facebook sort of just abandoned the platform, and now the platform doesn't see much engagement from the age group of 25 to say 35, and you see those people engaging more on Instagram. Tomorrow they might move on to another platform. But you are investing so much of your time every single day building this community, right? So a good idea is to sort of take in their details and keep them safe. And this taking in their details, from them just liking your posts to trusting you with their email addresses, is what we call the conversion part. And that's what the building community part begins. So before anything, and after we've set our goals, or when we decide what our feed is, it's important to decide who we are and for who we are. So who are we going to serve really, and what is the value that we are going to add to anybody's lives? So are people going to enjoy me having a great time at museums? Maybe. But are people going to enjoy me sharing something interesting I found at a museum and why I found it interesting, much more. So there is a value add that any museum or, even if you're, sort of just trying to send people to your podcast, what is the value add that you can bring to your larger audience? Why should they follow you instead of any other account? So that's the one thing. There are different stages that you might find yourself at when you sign up or decide to use Instagram. It could be to just deepen your engagement. So, for example, the Met is a really huge museum. They don't need to spread awareness about their museum on Instagram. So, for them, their goals might be more lead generation or conversion oriented. But say in India, we have DAG museums, which is a museum that just came up last year, even though they are part of a parent company gallery, which has existed for really long now. So for them, the initial purpose was awareness, but it slowly moved into engagement. So it's also important to, when you're deciding, what you're going to do on Instagram, to decide what stage you're at, because this is going to help you plan your content. So we just move to next slide. So being found. If we are at that point where we're figuring how we are going to make ourselves visible, whether it's an individual or personal or institutional account, doesn't matter, but how are we going to tell others about us? So this is a museum in my city. I come from Chandigarh in India, which was designed by Pierre Jeanneret, who's a French architect. So the city has a great cultural belt. And the museum, unfortunately, was not on any social media channel. And they decided that they want to start on Instagram. They had a Facebook presence, but it wasn't really too much. I mean, it wasn't really very active. So as an institution, they decided that, okay, let's try and make ourselves visible during Museum Week. Museum Week again is a global event, so it would give them a lot of visibility. So one thing is that if you're just starting out, or if you just want to increase your visibility, it's good to participate in as many hashtag global domestic campaigns that are happening in the industry or in your sector. So again, if you're a photographer, you might want to be part of some photography campaign that's happening in your city, in your country, maybe around the world. So when we decided to participate, and we put up, this was probably the third or fourth post that I put up for them, and we quickly had like almost 88 people liking it, and then the museum suddenly had more than 100 followers. And this is great for them, because within the city, you wouldn't believe there are a lot of people who are like, there's a museum in our city, where? So that's where the museum was at. Now, of course, if you're doing this for your own self and you want to be heard, and you're just wondering, this is one thing that I had asked when I was in Germany. I was asking a lot of my colleagues that, why are you not on social media? And one of the most common responses I got was, I don't have anything interesting to share. And I feel that as glam professionals, anybody related to the cultural sector, we all have stories. Even if you're not from the cultural sector, we all have stories to tell. But how we tell them and who we attract is going to be how we tell, it's going to depend on how we tell our stories. So let's see how we can make our own personal voices heard. So one thing could be that you say that, I love this particular museum, but you don't just stop at that, because remember, we have to sort of give value to the people who are following us. Why do you love a certain museum? What are the four, five things that you've loved that maybe somebody else has not even noticed about the museum? Is it the architecture? Is it the great collection? Is it their library? Is it their cafe? You can share anything and just at the rate tag that particular museum. See if the museum notices and shares your content ahead with their followers. Because then what happens is, people who are following that particular museum might just find your content interesting enough to come back to your profile, check it out, see your feed, and go like, I want to follow this person. Right? So it's always good to sort of just take a chance and credit the person, add the person's name. So I've given some prompts right here, but when we release the handbook, there will be more prompts for anybody to share. So one of the things that you can use, again, I've sort of mentioned it at the bottom, but hashtags, comments, replies to stories are other ways that you can be found. So if you follow someone who has a great following, is an author, is a writer perhaps, follow their stories, maybe send a reply to them. A recent thing that happened with me is that I follow someone who's not from my industry at all. But she's a columnist and she writes for big dailies. She has headed bigger publications in India. And I sort of connected with one of her stories and decided I can share a particular art story with her. So I just told her that, hey, if you like this, you might want to check out this artist. And then we got talking. And the next day, she shared my content and sent me more than 500 followers. So that kind of thing does happen. If you reply to stories and engage with people, maybe you just want to go to the Chandigarh Museum's post, see their comments, and engage with somebody else who's commented over there and add your knowledge to it. Because maybe you're not comfortable with creating your own post, that happens. A lot of people feel that they have the knowledge but they're not confident about putting up a new page, a new post, and that's absolutely fine. Just you can start with connecting with other people through their comments that they have left somewhere else. And we'll talk about hashtags soon, but for now we're going to see if we can do this together. So for those of you who are on Instagram, if you would like to take 2 minutes, and just take 2 minutes, just choose any open access artwork from the Europeana galleries that you might have wanted to use as a background, and tag the museum that you're choosing the particular artwork from. And you can always rephrase this, but do remember to tag so I can continue to share your stories, and then we all sort of, you'll see in the end that as we continue to share stories that we are attending, stories about an event that we are collectively attending, then we sort of connect to each other. And that's the beginning of that community feeling, right? It's almost like going for an event and coming back with someone's details and thinking that I'm going to write to this person and start to connect more with this person. So maybe if we can just take 2 minutes, if some of you are on Instagram. Henning, can we time this like maybe 5 minutes, 2 minutes?
2 minutes, yeah. I watch the time and then come back to you in 2 minutes.
Sure.
I don't have any music to play like Sebastian is normally in the main room. I hope people will stand in silence.
No problem. I can start to explain the painting that we've put up here because it's Diwali. So the ones who are not on Instagram, maybe you're not doing the activity. This is a particular artwork which shows the blue. The person in blue over here is Krishna because he's denoted in blue always, and that's his consort Radha. A lot of people have heard about Radha and Krishna. They're like the most famous deity couple in India, and they're watching people who have lit up lanterns around their homes, because that's what we do for Diwali. We put up lanterns. We also burst firecrackers, but that's banned, and maybe that time firecrackers weren't around, so they don't feature in the painting. And then we also play games where we gamble and sometimes win money. So it's just a thing about good luck. So yeah, so that's the painting I decided to share. And maybe for the ones who are not on Instagram, I can sort of share what I shared on Instagram today as a story where we decided to talk about the painting. And we just started by asking, which game would you prefer? Would you prefer chess or would you prefer Ludo? A lot of people have voted for Ludo, which is like the more human game to play, clearly. And then we just added a little more about the painting, that Diwali is about lights and about a socially distant, because usually for Diwali we go over to people's houses, give them gifts. So it's a more social festival, but this time it's socially distant. Talked about something I really love from the painting.
The 2 minutes would be up. Just
2 minutes
to let
are
you
up?
know. Yep.
Are we? Okay, great. We'll just quickly go back to the presentation and right. We're going to see if Europeana, if you tagged Europeana, we're just going to see if Europeana uses the hashtag and reshares our stories. That's going to be an experiment to watch out for. But now that we, sort of win ourselves a date with someone and win someone's attention, how do we start to converse with them? What do we talk about? People on Instagram talk about different things in different ways. Some people simply answer questions if that's what they're good at. So, in India, for example, not everybody is confident about talking about, say, sexual health in public, right? So, there is a particular medical practitioner who has gained a huge following simply because she decides to address those questions that you might be too shy about asking. So, she just takes those questions, and those are just written words, and you keep swiping different posts to see how she's answered them. Um, but we'll get to that. Now, how we just build a conversation can be about telling a story. Again, I would say that it's just like building a relationship. If you were sitting across the table on a date and you want someone to be interested in you and lead up to a second date, maybe, what are you going to tell them about? What is the best story? What is an adventure story? What is a good story for you to tell? Or get to know them without being all me, or preachy at all. So the Starts Gallery Stuttgart does this really well, and how they start by if we notice their stories, they're always asking people, what should we talk about, and what is the next object you'd like to see. So there are always questions, and then they talk about that particular object. The other thing is content buckets. So, especially if you're an institution, these little circles are basically highlights on your Instagram profile that people who are just going to come might want to just see those first, or you want to just highlight those. So, art, memes, exhibitions, some people even put up a calendar of events as a highlight. So anybody coming to their profile knows this is where I should go directly if that's what I want to know when is their next workshop, for example. And it's interesting that they put the same green for a good branding effect. But you know that these are largely the things that they talk about. So that's the content bucket. If you're using Instagram personally for a personal cause, and you say believe in open access, say you believe in how to, maybe you'd like to give people tutorials, so your content buckets could be how to, open access, events I attended, or conferences. Maybe you just want to make an entire Instagram account and just telling people about the different events that are happening at museums. So maybe your highlights would be based on different cities in your country, so people know which city they want. So creating content buckets is like the foremost thing of deciding when you're going to go in for an Instagram account, because what you're going to talk about is going to be of prime importance. Begin with a question. So there are different ways to use Instagram to do different kind of things. So I'm just going to share three examples that I worked around, and these personally I really believed in. So the first one that you see about a bird thing, I started with, have you ever wondered what birds talk about? And when people started to give their opinion, started to getting, I mean, this is like the hook that you give to anybody to come in, you're inviting them and their interests. So it's important to start any story with a hook. It need not be a question, but it should be an interesting enough hook. So in this particular story, we talked about a book, and at the end, this was a collaboration with a publisher. So we talk about a book of poems that deals with birds attending a conference. It's a Sufi book. The second one was in collaboration with the Vienna Tourist Board and House Der Music Vienna. And the question started with, to play a wrong note. I mean, it's a quote by Beethoven, and the people put in their answers saying Beethoven, but when someone writes an answer to you, they automatically want to go to the next slide. And in the next slide, you say that I didn't know about these 4 things about Beethoven that I discovered at XYZ Museum. But if you're an institution, you can completely turn it around and say, you could just probably, give people a different sort of a hook to say that we bet, these are four interesting things that we thought you might find interesting, something of that sort, right? The other one was a research based question, which was to ask, do museums only show things about the past? This is also to collect the research and share it with a wider range of museums so they can plan their programming in advance. This is something that the Heritage Lab does. So, just to understand people's interest. And we talked about rapid response collecting, museums around the world that are creating projects on COVID. So, different sorts of things, really. And then, of course, there's arts education. So you ask people about a particularly famous artist, and you somewhere know that this is what they're going to respond, and then you base your entire story around that. Some things you can plan, but some things need to be spontaneous as well. So this is an example by the Stadel Museum, and this is a very good example of storytelling. The Stadel Museum in Frankfurt was hosting this exhibition on Vincent around the same time that 2 other museums were, but I was particularly drawn to this museum because not only did they put in, a visitor, a contemporary art take over there, there were 2 things happening. And as a potential visitor, I start to see people like me, visitors in their feed. So that is the hook for me, that this exhibition is for people like me who will go there, right? So this is again a cheeky take, must have, would have. So there's something delightful, and then there's something intriguing. Now I want to know if they're selling those jackets over there at the museum because they wrote it, can't have, must have. So maybe I would send them a DM, like, quickly asking, hey, are these jackets available at your store? And that leads to a conversation about it. The third thing is where they have actually reposted a visitor who took a picture of herself, and they, in very small font, tagged her, but they added a little something there, that geotag your posts. So this is like automatically making it shareable, right? They're acknowledging someone's post, but they're also asking you to share your posts with the museums. So this is like a soft call to action. And then there is a bigger call to action. So a story that does not end with a call to action is 15, 20, 200, 300, 700 people seeing your story completely lost because they kept swiping. You had their attention, but then you didn't do anything with that attention. So, do you want to send them to your website? And if you send them to your website, then your website needs to have a funnel program for them. A funnel would mean that you got in, say, 200 people to click your website, but in the end, how many people really clicked and gave in their email address to you? So that basically would be a different strategy which you might have for your website. But this would be how Instagram can send people to wherever you want them to go, maybe to your podcast or your photographs or your gallery. So we'll just move a little ahead. So this one is an example from the Asian Civilization Museum in Singapore. This is interesting, right? When they started with their story, none of the first 3 images remotely look like a museum is going to put them up. They almost look like some brand is putting up a sale or there's some question around style or something. So it draws in people who are maybe not so interested in art, but are interested in fashion. So this is another way of pulling in people. And after 3 questions, they tell you that, your style sense matches one of Akbar's courtiers. And then they further go on to talk about the particular courtier's history as well before telling you where you will find the particular object. So we don't have a lot of time right now, but this is something that we can do. The image that you posted, if you posted to your stories earlier, just tell 3 fascinating things that you chose, 3 fascinating things about the artwork that you chose. It can be in a story format or a carousel post format, just because you've just shared with your audiences that you're using this artwork as a Zoom background. But is that what people want to know? That's what we've just discussed. How do we want to tell those people what is the value add that you can bring? Maybe you want to simply tell them about the open access status of this particular artwork, or you want to tell them about the museum it belongs to, or why you like that art, the subject matter. So it could be anything that you sort of choose to do with that particular story that you just made. And this is also a thing, if you're hosting an event for your museum sometime, encourage people to share their stories and then reshare those on your museum's handle to give a larger sense of what was going on during your event to people. Maybe summarize in the end that these were the highlights of our day. So those are things that you can do. I mean, Instagram is great for events mostly, but this is also how you start to connect with the people who actually came to your event. Now, the thing about falling in love, that is the most exciting feeling, right? So, for those of us who have fallen in love and experienced this, in the Instagram world, public display of affection is absolutely allowed and great. In fact, it's suggested. So, when you fall in love, what do? You do things together, you try new things together, you have fun together. So, again, if you're an institution's account, you might say today our museum educator is going to give you a tour of our artworks. Great, your museum educator can do that and would do it better than anybody else. But if you collaborated with somebody, one of your fans, followers, somebody who's been to your museum lots of times, then when you collaborate with that person, you're tapping into their audience and you're getting a new way of seeing your own museum's objects and artwork. So this is an example from the DAG museums, which I really think has emerged as a wonder museum during this pandemic, because they opened just before the pandemic and they had 300 followers at that time. And during this pandemic, they have grown to more than 4,000 followers. And they did this simply by digitally engaging with their audience. So, in the first image that you see of the lady with a bare back, this is actually a takeover. So, they invited another person who runs a palace museum to sort of take over their account and post her stories. So the person from the palace talked about an artist who had stayed at the palace earlier and whose artwork is part of the DAG Museum's collection. So there has to be a common angle also. It can't be completely different from each other. So the palace's audience suddenly got added on to DAG Museum's audience. And so that was something special and unique, but something fun and something absolutely different that in India, a lot of us who follow museums had not seen before were these little audio stories that DAG did using their artworks. And what was special was that they invited different people to narrate these stories. They invited an author, they invited a filmmaker, they invited someone who runs a really successful newsletter, different people from different backgrounds. I got to narrate one as well. So we didn't get to pick and choose the artwork, but we did get to collaborate on the script and the storytelling. And when these were released, this automatically sort of made us feel invested in the particular museum. So this is when you start to get pulled in the relationship that you have with the institution. Later on, during the festive time last month, they invited someone from their community who's an excellent artist who they found creative because they just follow her. Not like, the artist is a very well known artist in the community, nothing of that sort. But they just invited her and asked her to decorate their museum because during festive time, we'd all decorate our homes. And they combined her art with a treasure hunt trail on their stories. So this is a great collaboration that they made. Again, during this entire time, DAG Museum's Instagram account has simply collaborated with people from all sorts of creative spaces. But speaking of collaboration, this one is from the Kunsthistorisches Museum Vienna, where they actually ask, what is the theme that you want us to do a little museum tour on? Everybody during this time during the lockdown has done virtual museum tours. But this museum asked people what they wanted. And this is fascinating because people said butts. So the museum said, okay, we are going to do a theme on I like butts. And then this was a really funny, it's a funny theme, but it's an interesting theme. But tour was really informative. On the other hand, there was the Jahangir Nicholson Art Foundation in India that decided to release stickers in collaboration with a creative studio and then invited people to use these creative stickers based on artwork to create new artwork and then started sharing it ahead. So it was about engaging people who are your followers, who start to use your things, who start to build that kind of a love for you, and who look forward to news from you every single day. Now, these are all examples of museums and people from the glam sector. But now this is an example I was waiting to come at, and I'm going to try and do this as best as I can because we're very close to time running out. So this is Warby Parker, which is actually an eyewear brand who collaborated with an artist. They first got the artist to do their shop facades and the artwork for their shop. But the thing about an eyewear brand is like, it's very obvious if a stationery brand collaborates with an artist or if a museum collaborates with an artist. But this is an eyewear brand that asked the artist to do a tutorial for them, for their followers, on how to make a self portrait. So this is suddenly like engaging with someone completely aligned with your sector, but completely different. This is something we tried by getting an author who had written about history to work with a museum and sort of choose her collections that she would have used as research material for her book. But even that was very closely aligned. The idea would be to go completely different, completely off, but still find that some commonality that you share with someone else from amidst your audience who will become a valuable member of your community. This was anyway meant to be an activity to be done later to sort of uh, drafting a call for action on the image that you shared, but not right now because it's not so easy to just go from like to love to commitment. So this can be done at a really later stage, honestly. Um, the commitment part is the most difficult part because love lasts for longer as a period of time when you're on Instagram. You'll always find that there are few people who commit, sign up, who are always ready to come up with something, attend your events. These are people who you can just ask for advice, who you can just say that, okay, we are doing this special preview night for this exhibition, and would you want to join a special members club or something of the sort that enables people to sign up and say that, yes, I'm going to be there for you. We do this campaign called Art and Feminism with Wikipedia each year, and each year we create a launch group. This is a group that's going to help us by posting relevant graphics about the campaign on their social media feed, and we start collecting this group of people way before. So the campaigning actually starts sometime in November, December, and by the time we are hitting January, we already know that close-knit group of people who will definitely help us go forward. So it's about engaging. I know we said we'll speak about hashtags, and very quickly, the idea is never to use hashtags which seem really like you say hashtag apples because something in the painting is apples, but the idea is to develop hashtags that people would follow for a reason. If you just searched a particular hashtag, it's just good to decide whether you want to add your museum's artwork, your library's book, anything to that particular feed that comes up when you type that hashtag. um, I want to go on to a very important part about how, just these little secrets that I've sort of cultivated over time. We all, whoever has a business account, so if you're an institution, it's good to have a business account. But even if you're doing this for your own podcast or magazine, it's good to sort of convert that to a creator or business account so you get analytics. But it's not about just seeing analytics every day. It's good to just write them down that in this particular week, these many followers grew, and they grew because of XYZ post. So it's good to just keep a document of everything so we know exactly where our efforts were successful or where they were not successful. Another thing that I do is I keep a diary of everybody that engages with our account really deeply. So, whether it's museums, whether it is people, I keep an account, and every day I make sure that I engage with those people. So, even if you don't post every day, one has to engage with these people. This number can run into hundreds and more than that, but it is absolutely vital to do that and to just be around them. And finally, this is an actor from India, and I'm sorry about using her account, but really, this feature is not available to everybody yet. It's only available in India to people who are talking about mental health. So, there is this feature called guides. So, if you just see this is somewhere like a mix between a Twitter thread and lots of Instagram posts. So, what this allows you to do is write a blog post, literally like a lot of content by adding other people's or your own Instagram posts to this. This feature will roll out soon enough on Instagram. But this is a good point to see how you might start to curate the content around your museum or around your own interests. So if you just want to tell people about your favorite museums, for example, you could just sort of, pull their pictures up and talk about why you think those museums are great. So the guides feature is going to be a very interesting feature to look out for, especially for cultural institutions. And live shopping. In India, we still don't have shopping, so I can't use my screenshots here. But live shopping is going to be really great for institutions that are looking to revenue build. So, say you're hosting a workshop. So, you do a little live video telling people what they are going to learn, and then can just sort of have an image of the workshop ticket and say you can book your seat here. And so if people have already gone into your live and they're seeing a little demonstration of what they're going to be able to do, they're more inclined towards signing up really quickly. This is also helpful for merchandise or books that you're selling, or even a service. For example, if you freelance for museums, for instance, you could just do a behind the scenes of what you do for museums and then ask someone to book a consultation with you, maybe. So those are the different ways you can actually leverage Instagram to, yeah, and that's just the code to get to the handbook that had it's the post which is going to have Twitter. It already has LinkedIn one. We are going to put the Instagram one here as well. So everything's going to be in the same place, and there's also a social media strategy template and different material that you can use. I hope that you had fun, and can't wait to see all the comments. Sorry, this ran rather wrong, and I'm so sorry if I repeated some things that you already knew. Um, but do we have time, Beth and Henning, for some questions, perhaps?
Um, well, yeah. First of all, thank you for this. Also, yeah, I'm still like an Instagram newcomer, and I've read in the chat that I'm not the only one. I mean, in principle, there's nothing coming afterwards for this. I mean, if people want to stay here and talk to Medhavi, so that's still possible. But at least at 3 o'clock, we should be in the other room to join the final keynote. That's certainly the thing that is, yeah, that where we stop the latest. But I'm not. If people will stay, I'm not closing the room right now. So if there are still people that wanted to talk to Medhavi, have questions or comments, suggestions, ideas, then please go ahead. And if you still want to have a group
We should.
photo, I don't
Yes, we
know.
should do a group photo. If everybody agrees to switching on their camera, then maybe we can do a group photograph. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Antonia. Everybody who's leaving comments, thank you so much.
I'm trying to do this. Well, you can keep talking also, and I'm trying to
It was
see.
slightly challenging because honestly, I didn't know who's where with Instagram, and there are so many things, and it's 45 minutes. So I just wanted to share some of the best things that I found about the platform. And I think Arunesh here is one of the members of the family that I speak about because I have not known Arunesh personally, but I think from a follower on Instagram, we're actually now working together also and collaborating on something. So it's really interesting to see what some connections can do. How do you collaborate with the administration to align with the museum's mission? Yes, so it really depends on how the if the institution is going to be on Instagram, it's best to show them certain examples of what other museums are doing and how brave and how liberal they are being and the kind of impact they're having. There are museums that I've had a conversation with who wanted to remain really conservative about it, and that's okay too, because for some museums that really works. It really works because a lot of their audience expects that they'd only get information. So yeah, you never know that your community might it's great to do something fun, but I know that the National Museum here in India, for example, does do really conservative things, but it really works for them. It really does. They have a highly engaged Instagram account. So I hope that answers the question. Purely informative campaigns. Um, I'm thinking of a particular. I know I'm immediately thinking of art and feminism, and one of the things that we did during art and feminism is just bring out different women artists. But on the same lines, there was 5 women artists that I'm sure you have all heard of. And one of the things that they started with in their initial days, I remember the first year of the campaign, the story started with who are and they named and they gave the first name of the women. I don't remember the first names. So you wonder that who are these names, and then the next story sort of started telling you about the women artists, and then they encouraged and challenged people to go to a museum and find an artist or of a woman artist and share an image. So that started with a hook, with a challenge, and it grew to something so big that today museums are pledging that they will show at least 2 exhibitions that are dedicated towards women artists a year. There are different museums that have taken different pledges. So I think that's an excellent thing that they achieved with Instagram and Twitter, and more so with Instagram, definitely. Yeah, sure. We can show the uh, QR code again. I'll just move into present mode so it's bigger. I hope it's there. And if there's anything, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram or the email address at any point. I'm happy to sort of engage with you and um, yeah. I really enjoy Instagram a lot, and I hope that you do as well, and that we get to meet on the platform. And from all the places that you all came in, I'd love to just sort of visit your places through Instagram, maybe. So I'll stop the share now. Copyright free paintings. I think it's a good idea to use images that are open access, especially if you're going to add your own thing. But if a museum's already shared it on their page, then maybe you can just use a repost app to just reshare the content that they have shared, or just maybe ask the person who shared it, hey, can I use your images? Sometimes they just separately send them to you, and you can use those as well. Hey Tessa, I'm glad. Only the enthusiasm should be contagious. But yeah, so there are just different ways that you can have fun with Instagram. I've never tried, honestly, to be very honest, I have never tried an Instagram live at a museum because I find it really distracting. But if you do, then I hope that it works for your followers as well. Thank you again for being here and joining me today.